friends. Candace-Marie Mitcham here with Berkshire, Hathaway, HomeServices, Silverhawk, Realty, East Idaho, here in the beautiful Idaho Falls. And we are in the lending lounge. So thank you for tuning in and joining me today. And today I have for you another amazing lender, John Collins with Southwest Funding. John, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much.
So we're going to get started today with the big question that everybody is just chatting about nonstop right now, because they all feel like this. It's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. The sky is falling. What's going on with interest rates? Should I buy? Should I not? So
well, that's a $64,000 question there.
Right, right.
If I had a crystal ball, I'd probably be in Vegas. I don't know if anybody really knows what they're going to do, except that the conventional wisdom right now is that the Fed is finally done hiking the interest rates. They're expected not to do another rate increase in a couple of weeks. So that's a good sign. But there's other issues that are going on in the economy. So I don't see it turning anytime in the next few months, but we're going into an election year. And the party in power is probably not going to want the rates this high. So I would anticipate after the first of the year, they're going to start coming down a little bit. Right. That would be my guess.
Now, looking this morning, obviously you have your finger innately on the pulse every single day. What are you seeing with interest rates as of this morning?
It's ugly, Candace. Conventional rates are anywhere between 7.5% and 8%. FHA and VA are slightly lower, maybe by a quarter percentage point. But it's just, I mean, we're the highest we've been. Applications are off by 50%. There's a lot of pent up energy out there. There's a lot of people that are waiting. And I think that when interest rates start to go down, I think the floodgates are going to be open.
Yeah, well, the floodgates, let's explain that a little bit to everybody that's listening. So when that happens and everybody's saying, hey, I'm waiting for that golden rate to come back, I think there's a couple of things. I think one, 7 to 8%, when you look year over year, historically is about where the US would sit. So it looks ugly to us right now because it's still fresh in our mind about the 2.5%, the 3% of 18 months ago, of 12 months ago. But when we look at, again, the year over year and the history of the interest rate, it's actually not that bad. But again, just in recent history, it seems like we're getting a little bit of the short end of the stick, right?
Well, and you're right. National average interest rates are about 7 to 8%. I bought my first house in the mid 80s. I was at 12% interest rate. So we've had periods when the interest rate has been higher than that. The flip side of that is, and I do a lot of educational videos targeted towards Gen Z, is that they've never lived through this before. Right. So they have no prior experience. So to them, this is sticker shock. Right.
Well, and going back to the floodgates, again, what's going to happen is, should the rate start to cool a bit, right, and become more palatable to Gen Z, as you mentioned, or anyone else who's not quite as familiar with what that trend is, what then happens is then we have more buyers on the market.
Yes.
Then we have a little bit more of a competitive market going on. So can you talk a little bit more on that from a lending perspective?
Well, from a lending perspective, I mean, it doesn't affect us the way it affects real estate agents as much. Our rates are set by the Fed. Our rates do not mirror the Fed because the Federal Reserve sets the interest rate, and that is the interest rate that the banks are charged to borrow the money. And then from there, individual lenders add their margin on top of it. That's why you'll never see a 1-to-1 from what the interest rate is, which right now is about 5% on the Fed rate, but we're higher than that. From the real estate side, it's just basic supply and demand. Yeah. And right now, there's a lot of people that aren't listing their house. There's a lot of people on the buy side that aren't buying houses. All of a sudden, those interest rates come down, and you're going to have a shortage of supply. Yeah. And you know what happens when that happens is the prices start going up.
They do.
So
Yeah.
you might wait long enough for the interest rates to come down, but you might lose all of that on the other end when you're trying to buy the house and the price goes up. So it's Russian roulette is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my advice is if you can afford it, always the big caveat, if you can afford it and you
Yes,
find the home that fits your lifestyle, get your foot in the door, literally, and secure that
exactly.
home. And then we can talk about, improving the financing situation a little
Refinancing.
bit later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we normally say, I mean, in a normal market, we usually try to counsel people that if your interest rate is 1% above or more, where the current market is to what your interest rate is, that's probably a good time to refinance.
Right.
So, if somebody bought a house now, they were at 8%, you get below 7%, it's probably going to be advantageous.
Right.
Now, the other thing that people have to remember is that there's not a prepayment penalty, but sometimes there's some restrictions on how soon you can refinance.
Hmm.
From the lender side, I have to ask that question. When did you start this mortgage? You know, so that's something else to keep in mind.
Yeah. And now, John, I mentioned briefly, and of course, I'll put your contact information down below,
Mhm.
but you're with
Mhm.
Southwest Funding. I'm here in
Correct.
Idaho Falls, Idaho. So obviously you are licensed to conduct business here, but you are also licensed to conduct business in other states as well. Can you share that with everyone, please?
Yeah, I'm licensed in Idaho, Wyoming, and Texas.
Okay.
So those are the three states. I mean, Wyoming, obviously, because we're located so close to it. But I came from Idaho, so that's why Idaho, and I lived in Dallas for 30 years. So
So if
um,
anybody's watching, if you are looking to secure a new mortgage or you're looking at potentially refining or doing any kind of, equity leveraging from your property and you're in Wyoming or Idaho or Texas, you can give John a call and have that conversation with him. I like to call him Uncle John because he is so patient and he is so great at stepping everybody through the process and really taking the time to help educate all of our buyers and sellers on what their options are. So thank you for that, John.
well, and something else I'd like to mention is don't wait till you're ready to buy. Call me 3 to 6 months before.
Yeah.
Let's take an analysis of where you are. What's your available funds for a down payment? What's your credit look like? Is there something that we have to clean up or work on? Don't wait till you're ready to buy. That's a bad idea.
Yeah. And I would say most people have something that they need to address. So the sooner you start looking at that, the better for sure. So that's a
Yep.
great point.
Yeah.
So switching gears just a little bit, I know that one of the things that is near and dear to your heart and my heart and is taking care of our veterans.
Yes.
And so, and also being a veteran yourself, thank you for your service.
Thank you very much.
You and I have partnered with Heroes Home Advantage. And I want to talk a
Yes.
little bit about that. And, just to kind of set the tone for everyone listening right now, Heroes Home Advantage, what they do is they work with pardon my spokesman here, Enzo, but he wanted a little TV time. What they do is they look to help work with our current military, our veterans that have previously served, our law enforcement, fire service, teachers, even homeschool teachers, and
Mhm.
also medical professionals to really say, you are our hometown heroes. How can we help you get into a home? How do we make that a little bit easier for you? And so all of the professionals that get involved with this program end up helping to subsidize out of what we would normally be taking in as a commission to help make the closing costs that much easier for our home buyers and for our heroes. So for example, I forego a portion of my commission, which then gets applied to the closing cost for my buyers. So I'm very excited to be able to do that for our heroes. And again, that is more than just military. We do have those other employment options that I mentioned earlier. So if you have any questions about that, you can obviously talk to myself or you can talk to John and see how we can best assist you with that. But with that said, John, let me give you the floor and let you talk a little bit more about why you decided to get involved with that with me and what you think of the program.
Well, Candace, as you know, I've been an advocate for veterans my entire time that I've been doing mortgages, and they are close to my heart. Um, and Heroes Home Advantage was an opportunity for me to expand that and to give back to a group of people that really sacrifice for the rest of us. And so I love the program. I think we should mention that you give back as a realtor, I give back as a lender, but we also have other professions that give back. It might be appraisers, it might be inspectors, it might be title companies. All of these people are willing to step up to the plate and give them something back to help them get into that home.
It's a small
I
way
think,
for us to give them a big
yes,
thanks that can never be big enough for what they contribute for our freedom.
exactly, exactly. And you know, in my case, I mean, you're bound by a little bit different rules than I am. But some of that money that you give back can be used to lower your interest rate.
Mhm.
So you gotta keep that in mind, that that's an excellent opportunity. On the lender side, what we do is give a credit towards the appraisal, and so that helps them out, on that end of it. So yeah, it's a great program. I'm thrilled to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I really appreciate you going on that journey with me. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we
you
work
bet.
together. We have some of the same passions, in life personally and professionally, and really like to support the same causes. So definitely
Yeah.
appreciate that. Well, is there any other burning questions that you're noticing that are coming up from consumers of late that you think are kind of frequently asked questions that maybe we should touch base on, or do you want to hold tight on that until next Wednesday?
Well, I'm all about education, and I'm not trying to do a free plug, but I do have a YouTube channel out there called Mortgage Knowledge 101,
Yeah.
where I do videos about the mortgage industry, and I do podcasts sometimes. I've interviewed you, as a matter of fact, to try to educate people, because the thing we hear the most of is that the younger generation, I'll say 40 and below, are confused about how to buy a house
Hmm.
and what goes into it. And there's a lot of terms that when you start buying a house, you're not familiar with them. And so I try to educate them on what is debt to income, what makes up a good credit report, what affects it, how can you improve it. So that's really, I get more joy out of that, because I love helping people understand the process. I also do reverse mortgages, and that's a whole new different, animal there, because you're dealing with senior citizens as myself. And a lot of them don't use email,
Yeah.
and a lot of them want to meet in person,
Hmm.
because that's the way they've always done it.
Yeah.
So I love working with people. That's why I do what I do.
Yeah. Well,
So
and it's about leading with service, right? I mean, that's part of the lending lounge as well, is to help demystify some of these things and help educate people in a bite-sized fashion about what's going on in the current market, right? So thank you
exactly.
for
Yeah.
your service as well, by helping to educate everybody from the
You're
young to
welcome.
the relatively seasoned to the more vintage.
To the fine, matured wine as myself.
There you go. There you go. Well, thank you so much. I'll make sure that I link your YouTube channel there and your social media, and as well as provide
Okay.
all your contact information for everybody down below. And again, next Wednesday, we have a date. We're going to get back together and we're going to chat some more about what else is going on, and hopefully get better news about what's going on in the market.
Let's do that. I would enjoy it very much. Thank you, Candace.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day,
All
everyone.
right.